watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is a show where you can have your property related questions answered by our studio guests. And joining me today, Hayley Andrews, CEO of Your Freedom Empire.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How
Good.
are you?
That's a nice dress you're wearing.
Thank you very much.
Good. Looking very smart. Very swish.
summery.
Yes. Yes. I wish it was a bit more summery.
I know.
And on your right is Nicholas Zorpides, founder of Nicholas & Co Surveyors. Welcome, Nicholas.
Hello.
Getting quite a regular now, so
yes,
that's very good. Very pleased to have you on the show.
Getting used to pronouncing his name now.
Yes.
Aren't you?
Oh, right. I could never read very well, I'm afraid. So there we are.
I wouldn't even try with my black country accent. Not great.
So are you one of those Peaky Blinders then?
Yes, I am. Yeah, absolutely. It was actually filmed at the Black Country Museum, or some of it was filmed just around the corner from my offices.
I read a bit of history on them actually. They were just quite violent street gangs, weren't they?
Well,
Actually,
it fits if the shoe fits.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Honor among thieves and all.
For me or you? Okay, all right. Well, let's get on with the show. So, Nicholas, you're first. I'm about to purchase my own property for which I'll require a mortgage. I'm told that the lender's valuers often downvalue the property that's going to be the security. Do the big valuation companies that often work for these lenders at reduced rates have different calculation methods from the smaller independent firms? And would I be better off using a smaller private valuer of my own choice? Well, that's I've got a feeling I know what you're going to say here.
So I would say categorically no. They don't use any different calculation methods.
Okay.
A lot of it's all set out in the Red Book.
This is the RICS.
Yeah, guidance by the RICS to promote high standards of valuation and everything else. So, no, there is no different methods.
I'm going to say that's the theory.
That is,
and having spent a life arguing with valuers, I'm not so sure.
We always do. I mean, myself included. But
we've got one on site.
Yeah,
well, okay.
But there's no different method. There's only essentially 5 methods to valuation, being the comparable method, which is used for residential, investment method, which is for commercial or income producing properties. You have residual, which is for development appraisals, cost method, which is things like stadiums, hospitals that you value, and then profits method, which would be for hotels, let's say. So there is no other methods that a larger practice use that a small practitioner doesn't. I think mostly, probably cost-wise, you get better costings from a smaller practice, mainly because the overheads are cheaper, the PI cover isn't as high. So I would suggest that you could get a better value for money going for a smaller practice, but there's no difference in the ways that we value from a large firm to a small firm.
I think the slight flaw there is that the lenders tend to have panels of valuers, and unless the valuer you choose is on that panel, they're not going to accept his valuation.
They have to be on their panel of lenders, correct. And again, that is more of a PI cover issue. To be on a panel lender, they do require a larger PI cover than your smaller practices. But you can get an independent valuation, but not one that will cover for mortgage lending purposes.
Yes. I suppose the difficulty there, Nicholas, if I just take you to task over the cost, whilst you say a smaller valuer might be more economical in terms of his fees, lower overheads, that sort of thing. On the other hand, he hasn't got the volume that a big firm of valuers has got, if they're perhaps lending for valuing for nationwide or somebody. They're probably doing 100, 200, 300 a week.
Yeah.
And you're going to find they're offering valuations for £100 or something. I suspect I would struggle to get you to do it for that sort of money.
You're probably right there.
I'm probably right, aren't I?
You don't want any valuation that costs you that much money.
It all really is to do with the value of the property. that it's usually calculated over and the size on scale of it.
Yes.
So it usually turns out.
But it
to
really
be
is a lot of it's all about insurance, isn't it?
Mainly comes down to PI covers.
I mean, I don't know whether our viewers will realise that a valuer, if he does get it wrong in terms of what he presents to a lender, can be sued if it goes
Indeed,
wrong.
Yeah.
So that has to be insured for, and it can be quite expensive, can't it?
It definitely can be, especially when you're valuing for lending purposes. It can be quite pricey. I mean, and they have increased. So, you know, you're talking over, it could be 10, 20,000 just to be on a panel.
I think,
So
years ago I had a bank manager that used to say to me, if I say no, don't get cross, think about why I'm saying no. And I think that kind of logic applies to valuations in a way, doesn't it? If a valuer does say, look, I'm sorry, this is just not up to the figures, it is, I think, incumbent on you to have a think about that at least. And
I think if you're new, yeah, absolutely. But our conversation off air before we came live was the difference between, a property income producing asset, a business as such, and a 40% difference in the valuation over a 2-week period. So I think you need to make sure that your valuer is a specialist in that area. Because someone that's used to, valuing a residential home may not value a HMO correctly. And why they have, their red book as such to follow and a formula to apply, they will give it is a matter of opinion as well.
But I think you were right on your first comment. I mean, it's a question of experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Hayley, you must be 21 now, so you've obviously been in business for at least 2 or 3 years, and you'll have gained an experience of and a feel for what a valuation should be around. First time buyer, as this would indicate the viewer is not going to have that knowledge, so they are totally dependent on the valuer and the guidance that they get.
Well, you can request to see the list of
the logic and the comparables,
and then you can research them yourselves to see which ones are your local ones, which have good reviews and which don't, and you can pick and choose yourselves. I
always think a good tip for a sort of first timer really is to look on. There's 1 or 2 of the property portals that will analyse the last sold price of a property in any one street. You can look the street up, you'll be given a list of properties that are recently sold in that street.
Well, they can do that themselves.
Well, exactly, they can do it themselves. So before the valuer comes, they can get a feel for where where it should be, where the evidence says it should be, because the only evidence really is a sold property, isn't it?
I mean, when you're looking at a residential, a first-time buyer, it's their home, isn't it? It's very easy to find out the valuation of the property, like for like, within a mile, within the last 6 to 12 months maximum, same size, style, age, etc. It's very, very easy. I would say just take 3 from your sold comparables, not listed, because that could be anything. Indeed. Actual sold comparables, and then take an average of those 3, and then you've got an idea of what that property is worth.
Yes. Nicholas, am I right in thinking it's still practice to take as comparables? Is there a 3-month time limit on that? I think people tend to look at what's sold in the last 3 months, isn't it? Is that
it depends on the market. It depends on what's available, what has sold. So you can go 6 months, you can go at 9. You can expand the area if you're not finding relevant comparables. So yes, obviously the ones that have sold in the latest 3 months are the best comparables to go by, especially if it's close by, similar property, same size. So yeah, you've got to find, as I said, that comparable to the market. No, so you have to expand your search and expand your area, and make a judgment.
When we're talking about mortgage valuations, what about this practice of what they call desktop valuations? Which basically means the surveyor doesn't want to go; he's just going to do it on his computer in the office. I mean, how does that sit with red book valuations?
A desktop is still a red book valuation. There's only a few instances where valuations aren't red book. So desktop can be or is a red book valuation. It tends to work out cheaper for the client because obviously the surveyor's not having to spend time going to inspect the property, and still just as valid as a fully inspected property. But banks are doing this a lot more now, we're finding. So you're almost getting your
the next
mortgage
step
offer
is they'll be doing it themselves.
beforehand. Yeah, soon enough. Yeah, they are coming up with automated valuation software now for comparable. But,
There you go, Hayley.
I don't think it can work
say-
much on the other investment valuation methods, but on comparable evidence, it can work well.
Just to kind of add to that, I would say, you know, of course, the valuation is on behalf of the lender. It's not on behalf of you, of the buyer. So I always recommend that you have your own independent survey carried out if the property is more than 10 years old or there's anything that you're worried about.
This was my point last time on the home buyers, to get a home buyers with a valuation.
Well,
because
I think that's where the home
it's
buyers
acting
really comes in, doesn't it?
It's
a
acting
great
for
service.
buyer, not lender. So
yeah, good. Okay, thank you for that one. Hayley, I'm interested in building a portfolio of investment properties and would appreciate the panel's thoughts on whether I should gear this to simple buy-to-let individual properties or go the route of HMOs. My initial thoughts are that the HMO route might be a little complex for a newcomer to the industry.
You're talking to the HMO queen, apparently.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. Of course, most people that are just starting out would like to kind of cut their teeth on a standard buy-to-let, get used to the whole process, get used to being a landlord, understand their legal responsibility, and then quite often will move into more complex strategies such as HMOs. And of course, you've got to look at it from both sides as well. Not only is a HMO more risky, because there are more tenants, there's more legislation, there's more red tape, there's more things that you have to adhere to. The properties tend to be more expensive to purchase, the renovations to convert tend to be slightly higher. So everything's just that little bit more with a HMO, I think. So of course it is more risky as a result of that. And most people that are moving into HMOs will have a couple of years experience within the buy-to-let industry before they move into more complex strategies. And I think that's sensible. So your buy-to-let tends to be your foundation level of your portfolio, and then you kind of move up to the more risky strategies. But of course, if you're focusing on cash flow, the cash coming from a HMO is much higher. So the revenue generated from a HMO is much higher than that as a buy-to-let. So it depends on
It's slightly more volatile though as well, isn't it?
Well, not really, no, because lots of people think that because of course, you know, you've got maybe 6 rooms within a house that you would rent out to one family. Now, on a buy-to-let, it is, a lower turnover of tenants. They tend to stay longer, and of course, it is a much easier strategy to get into, much easier strategy to understand, and less hassle from a management point of view as well. But with HMOs, of course, yes, you may have 6 tenants, and you've got to tenant 6 rooms, and there's more rents to collect, and there's more regulations to adhere to, etc., such as licensing, planning, all things like that. But if one room is empty, then you still have 5 other people that are paying. So of course it kind of, people do see it as more risky, and it is in some aspects, and definitely from an experience point of view. If you don't know anything about HMOs, I absolutely recommend that you go down that route first before you start looking at turning in any property into a HMO.
Listen, we live in a society that is fairly well governed now by regulations and things, and I know we've talked about this before on different shows, but do you really think it's time perhaps for a sort of certified induction course if you want to be a landlord, a private landlord? I mean, I'm thinking, just to put that in context, I'm thinking you run an organisation which you give tutorials, you give mentorship, but I'm thinking of a half-day course or something that's obligatory, but it gives you the basics of your responsibilities as a landlord, your liabilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that perhaps should be mandatory before you're allowed to go into the residential letting market.
I think so, and I think it is a much more professional arena now, and I do think people are getting educated because they need to, to protect themselves as well as their tenants. But as we've said before, if you're self-managing, you really need to understand not only your legal responsibility, but how to take care of the tenants, how to take care of the property, and how to minimise your risk and protect your tenants as well. So I don't think that it would be a bad idea at all. And as I've said, I'd quite happily do it.
Well, I mean, it could be either either or, couldn't it? Either you use an accredited letting agent, or you take the course yourself.
Who has some sort of recognised qualification within that industry. Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join me again after break with Nicholas and Hayley.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time with Nicholas Zorpides and Hayley Andrews. Nicholas, your second question. I'm in the process of buying an apartment in a small development of new properties. I have exchanged contracts and am coming up to completion shortly. I've been told by the developer that I must view the property and supply him with a snagging list. I understand the need to do this and my solicitor has confirmed the need for it, but I'm not a qualified property person and this is my first purchase. Who could I get to undertake this with me and what would be the cost of that? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. So there we are.
Okay, so
I bet you love snagging lists.
Yeah, so yeah, snagging lists, they're common obviously for new builds and actually refurbished properties as well, rather than getting a home buyers as an alternative. And actually they cover very similar things in order to essentially view the property and note down any issues, any defects.
Is there a sort of RICS package that does snagging as opposed to?
Not like the home buyers.
No, okay.
No, albeit you can get a qualified chartered surveyor to carry out a snagging list for you, from which I refer you to the RICS to find. So it does go through a lot of the things that are already in a home buyers as you know, things to look out for, from internals, externals, etc. And then, you know, the purpose of it is obviously to ensure that the builders do, you know, fix or the works that are, you know, come up as default in the reports. So, but cost-wise, again, always depends on size and scale of the property. You know, this was a 1-bed, 2-bed apartment, so you could be looking upwards of 500 plus VAT. And then for a larger property, a 5-bed, you know, detached new build, obviously that will cost more because of the time taken on site in order to review. So yeah, but I would refer you to the RICS. You can get, there are a number of actual qualified builders that carry out this snagging list as well now.
Never let you build to do the snagging, though.
Yes, but as I said, there are some companies that do it. I would refer to the RICS as always.
Well, look, there's 2 or 3 things here, though. I'm just thinking for a first-time buyer with a flat, you know, another 500 quid's a lot of money, you know, and they're going to say, oh, crikey, I think I'll do it myself. So if they do go down that path and do it themselves and miss things, what are the consequences of that? Do you have any right to go back to the builder if you miss it?
It depends on time and scale. As when would that be? After a year?
And the builder, I suppose.
I mean, there does come with the properties already will come with a warranty, which is set up by
HBC.
Yeah. So you know you are going to get that. What's covered in that warranty is to be seen, and obviously it would have had to pass building regulations and building control, the property anyway. So these are more smaller defects in the property that occur, from my experience anyway.
I'm just wondering, you know, if I was just buying my first flat and, you know, I'd absolutely broken myself getting the deposit and the, you know, the first month's mortgage payment and everything else. I don't know whether I'd maybe not even have the £500 to spend on that. And I suppose this sort of snagging, it's going to be mostly visual stuff, isn't it?
It's not an invasive survey
technical
in any way. No, it's a visual survey.
Because as you say, they've had to conform to building regs, and it might even be that the developers had to go through an inspection process to get his final drawdown from the bank for the construction money, maybe. So quite a difficult subject. Actually, I mean, it seems to be an easy answer, but it's not, is it? What would you say, Hayley?
A lot of our internationals will have professional snaggers to go and check out after the work has been done. That
maths is easy, isn't it? If you're in Singapore and it's 800 quid for a flight, you know, and 500 quid to go and have it checked, well, what do you do?
Exactly.
I'm just thinking of the viewer that's here. That's obviously the first time buyer.
Yeah, but you understand that, you know, to get a home buyer is similar in costings anyway. whether you're a first-time buyer or not. So
Would
there
the
are
home
costs that
buyers
come with
report
it.
pick up like a chip in the skirting board and maybe the silicone around the toilet not done right or something? I don't think it would.
No, it wouldn't go. It wouldn't go to that detail.
It's a different type of snagging, isn't it?
Exactly.
I think if they are worried about finance and go along, have a look themselves. Of course, if they've got a home buyer's report or it's under warranty anyway, anything that's really an issue, such as electrics, boiler, or anything like that, windows, all things like that are going to be covered, aren't they?
Indeed.
So it's really go and have a look. Make sure you're happy with the finish. Make sure that I'd say take a female with you as well, because straight away I can look at so maybe go and have a look yourself. If you're confident that you've picked up everything, you can see whether it's to your standard, and I think that's what you need to, because everybody's standard is different.
Well, I think that there's another point here, is I don't think you should view your developer necessarily as the sort of enemy.
No.
And actually,
they're quite happy to put it right.
Yeah,
of course.
A developer will find it's a lot easier and cheaper for him to put things right while it's empty, before you've moved in, before you put your carpets down and your furniture and all the rest of it, to put it right easily. It's dead easy to say, come on, painter, just go in there for 2 minutes and do this. So I think you work with your builder, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
No, they do. They are on your side in order, hence why they requested you to go around with them and check snagging. They would actually usually have a manager appointed for that very reason anyway, to go down around all the properties and ensure they're fit for
never
purpose.
mind in your business model, what are we saying? Do it yourself.
Well, it depends.
You can do. I've got family that have done it themselves.
You can download a free snagging list and walk around a checklist and have a walk around the property. If you feel confident after that, and you've got all of it's a new build, then you're pretty much covered.
And I think you'd find if you just talk to the builder and say, listen, I'm a little bit nervous, I'm a bit green on this sort of stuff, would you walk around with me? Or
I go around with yellow sticky notes, sticking it on. Right, that's not done. That's not done. And
I'd expect nothing less. Nothing less.
They hate it when I come round. I do the snagging on my own projects though, if they are local.
Well, there we are. Any problems? Give Hayley a call.
Yeah, hire me.
No end to your talents. Right. Okay. Well, we'll see how you get on with your last question then.
Don't make it a difficult one now, just to kind of...
Do we ever? Listen, I have a portfolio of properties and I'm coming to the end of my first year of trading as a buy-to-let landlord. I've thought of having the portfolio revalued, hopefully in an upward direction, to see if I can borrow more to expand the number of properties I own. Would I suffer any form of taxation or other kind of penalty on the increase in value achieved, or is it just normal practice when hoping to borrow for expansion?
Easy answer.
Yeah.
Speak to your tax advisor. I can answer that question, but of course I'm not a tax specialist. I have people I call for that. So if you are refinancing, you're not selling, you're refinancing, and you're reinvesting that money, then you don't pay a capital gains tax on that. Okay. You would, however, pay capital gains tax when you sell.
Of course.
So that's the difference. And what level of capital gains tax you would pay would come down to whether you purchased in your own personal name or whether you're through a limited company.
I was just going to say, is it the same structure for limited or not?
So if you own the portfolio in your own personal name and you are looking to sell, and that's either now or at any time in the future, you would pay, I believe it's up to 28%. Capital gains tax, depending on your own personal income. So whatever income tax bracket you sit in. If you are doing it through a limited company, then it's 19% flat rate on profit.
Okay.
So it's very different. One of the things to kind of think about there, which is not a tax question, but actually if you have a portfolio, if you have lending on that portfolio, before you look to refinance out, check that you don't have any early redemption fees. Because
they can be quite expensive,
and they can be quite very, very expensive. So that's one thing that I would definitely check. But no, you don't. So if you reinvest in that money, I mean, if you're looking to pull it out of the company, then it's how you pull that out, whether it's dividends or income, then you would be taxed. But on the actual money you release, no.
But Hayley, like anything, we talk about it so many times on this programme, very important to have your set of legal, financial and business advisors.
Absolutely.
And it's important to think of these things as you go into business, not just at the end.
Yeah.
Because some things are irreversible.
And that's the thing, isn't it, there? I mean, this guy or girl is talking about refinancing, but at some point in the future, are they looking to sell? Or so you've got to look at, this is why it's important at the beginning to sit down with a tax advisor and a tax specialist to be able to understand, well, okay, this is what I'm looking to achieve. Ultimately, this is my end goal. What's the most tax efficient way for me to get there and then get out without it costing me an arm and a leg?
Just interestingly enough, if you put your sort of lender's hat on, would you expect somebody to have been going a little bit longer than 12 months before they start ratcheting up their investment, or would you think that's long enough to base a business decision on?
Yeah, they do. So you can refinance after 12 months. Okay. Of course, the longer you've been operating for, the more lending options you have available to you, the more experience you have, the more lending options you have available to you. It's going to come down to, again, the asset quality of the area, your profile of tenant. All of this is going to have an impact on, the decision and the loan to value and the interest rate you pay. So while, if they were to leave it for 2 years, for example, they may get a better interest rate and a higher loan to value because they are classed as more experienced, but they will still have options available. Yeah.
And again, nurture a good broker who understands the buy-to-let market.
Yeah. And you have your team and you make sure that you understand everything before you go in and how you're going to get out. It's very, very important. Okay, well, there we are. That's all we've got time for today. So, Nicholas Zorpides, thank you very much for coming in again today.
Thank you.
Hayley Andrews, thank you very much for coming in. Great answers, both of you. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time.